This is week 1 for the web design project, which is the one for building a web showcase of your work. So it does double up as a website in the portfolio subject. However, if you're not up to doing the portfolio subject yet, that doesn't matter. You still do this project regardless, and it'll just give you a head start for when you do this project next semester. So in terms of showcasing work, you'll be just working with whatever you've done so far in the diploma and certificate 4 and other work you might have. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at what you need to actually do for this project. It asks for a minimum of 10 pages. It asks you to categorise your work. So that means, do you have a section for illustration, photography, publication design, visual identity development, which means logos, etc. Do you want to have an actual branding section, which branding, just to be clear, means where you develop a system which includes logo designs and other visual identity, and you maybe have it on business cards and it goes across shop fronts, websites, the side of trucks, etc., on everything that goes out of a business. So that's a branding piece of design work, as opposed to the visual identity, which is the smaller parts of a branding strategy. So a branding strategy is slightly larger thing and involves sort of the words you use and everything, and the kinds of advertising, etc. So for a lot of you, what you've got is visual identity rather than the whole branding strategy. So that's just a little bit on thinking about what to call different sections. You might have a specialty which you want to showcase, and that could be something like more detailed illustrations, some work you've done outside of TAFE, maybe some freelance work. You may want to have a section for that. That's fine. Those are individual decisions. Maybe you've got a lot of beautiful photography. Then you might want to have a tab for photography. So whatever way you divide up your actual design work, they can translate into distinct pages. But bear in mind that when we say 10 pages, a page can have sections. So, it could be 2 pages in the one screen. That's fine. There are some things to think about before you get into the detail, though, which is what is the actual purpose of your website? So what are the goals for it? And you will be asked to answer these questions in the web evaluation. So it is important that you think for yourself a little bit about how you intend to use the website. Are you intending to actually try to get freelance work from the website to generate a business? It's part of running a business. Then you probably want a services page, and the brief does ask you to talk about what services you offer. But if you're actually wanting to generate work through the website, then you probably need to do a little bit more work on that services section. And to do that, you might need to research other design sites. You should all be researching other design company websites to look at things like how they advertise their services, what they call those services will give you ideas for yourself. How they talk about themselves is also could help you. And then things about the actual layout. So you should be doing some research just as you did in the small business website, where you look at existing businesses, look at existing websites, comparative business. So obviously for this one, you're looking at comparative portfolio sites or just design websites that offer design services. So you need to do that research before. So screenshots again of the kinds of things that are influencing you, designs that you like. But also getting some ideas about what to call things and how to organise things. So make sure you're covering the items it says on the brief. Enlarging images, so galleries that allow the image to open up and have more information about them. Logo, obviously we want to make sure you're using your own personal logo and that you don't suddenly introduce different colours or different fonts. There shouldn't be any reason that you can't upload a particular font to Blurb. That is possible. So if you need help with that, then that's something you can ask a specific question about that, and I can show you how to do that. You can limit downloading of images. That's also a feature on some of the galleries. Making sure you've got your navigation, so your menus. Think about things like you might want to have other ways of getting into particular projects. So remember that images can be links, so people can navigate via images or symbols. You might decide you want to have a symbol for each different kind of work. So your homepage might be more like a contents page. So those are lots of things to think about. A downloadable PDF of your resume. So that's like you open your PDF file, resave it as a low resolution PDF, and then you'll be able to upload that onto your contents page, or you might want to put it onto your contact page, or you might decide you want to have a tab for that. So obviously using typographic fonts in a similar way to you've used on your other branding. If you're not doing the branding because you're not doing the portfolio subject, then you could just use your name, or you might want to have a go at doing some kind of logo for yourself. But you could just pick a typographic style and just use your name as the main branding. Okay, and that's it goes to another thing. What are you going to call the website? What's the kind of title going to be? Is it just your name and then graphic design, or are you going to actually say you're running a freelance business and have a name for that business? Okay, so I think that covers most of it. Contact form, you've got to have that. So obviously, whether you're trying to do a freelance business or just treating the website more as a link that you're going to use when you're applying for jobs and you want people to look at your work quickly. So it's a showcase, that you're going to use, but not necessarily have lots of freelance work generated from. It's going to be an aid to help you find a job. So decide which is your kind of major goal or goals for the website. And then also consider that you need to readjust the website for the mobile version. So that's quite easy to do in Wix. Remember that you don't have to do it in Wix. That's not a requirement. We suggest Wix because it's easy and you can have a free version which you can later upgrade to a professional level, which means you have your own domain name, so you'd have to pay for that. I think the free version for the Squarespace one might require that password, so that's a little harder for the industry people to come and review it. So your website will be reviewed by industry if you're doing the portfolio subject. If you're not doing the portfolio subject, you won't have it reviewed by industry at this stage. It would be reviewed next semester, at the end of next semester. So it is going to be a live website. It does need to be published. It's not just a prototype, so you will be needing to supply me with the actual address so that I can look at it and mark it live. And the same thing for the industry feedback. We want to be able to give them the website address, link, and they just go there and actually see it. So I think that's clear. You will then do an evaluation document, and for people not doing the portfolio subject, you would just use my feedback. For people doing the portfolio subject, it's a requirement because it is then part of the portfolio subject. They would need to talk about what feedback they got from industry people. The emphasis in this part for the website in this subject is it's a web project. So the marking and the feedback is more concerned with a lot of the functionality of the design and is it fit for purpose. So I guess with the portfolio subject, the emphasis on the marking for that is much more aesthetic and really linked in with the professional goals that you're setting for yourself. How are you using it, etc., and does it function? Does it showcase the work and have sections and navigation that work for you? So when I look at the navigation side of it in the web subject, I'm really looking, clearly trying to see that the actual functionality is there for the website. So that's really the main things to talk about. The evaluation, it's great if you can do some screenshots as you're developing it, so that way when you get to the evaluation, it's easy for you to talk about what things you encountered as problems and what you ended up changing based on feedback or based on the testing. Okay, so just up the top there for task 1. So all that stuff I've been talking about being clear what the purpose of the website's for, that's really something you need to write down to answer that now, which is what is the focus, and what are the navigation requirements. So a wireframe diagram drawn as a graphic or a screen grab, so you could do it up in Illustrator if you wanted to, or just draw it on paper and photograph it. You need to send that to me via email, preferably by next week. Why? Because we want you to have worked out a structure before you start designing. So we don't want that process of working out the structure to go on for weeks. We want to just cut to the chase and get you going on the project. But it's much easier to see if there's a problem with the navigation and something you might not have thought to include in the website as a feature if you do that wireframe diagram first. So I'll need to see that, and then I'll need to see 2 layouts. So one sketch for the home page of the website. So what's it going to look like? Remember to use a grid structure. If you don't have graph paper, that's fine. You can still use a ruler, for goodness sake. So we want to see that there's a bit of a structure that is, using a grid, so things do align in some way or another. So a slideshow, is that going to be on the front? Or what's the menu going to look like? How many tabs? Are there a series of images or an interesting gallery on the front? What's going to be in the footer? Remember that, well, I must point that out actually, on that criteria of what's got to be on the website, it does say, go back up here, copyright statement. So what does that mean? That means that you say something, and it could be sitting in the footer, that says something like, all the work in this website is my original work, except where otherwise stated. And then you make sure on the website you've got some way of crediting the photos that aren't yours. So it might say something like images sourced from Unsplash, or images sourced from, you might be able to name the actual photographer and put the actual usage symbols from the sites like Flickr, for example. They give you that, and then you can credit the actual person. So you need to do something about copyright right throughout the website, because remember, this is being published. So where you're putting up images that aren't your own, it's not that that's not valid. They could be part of a magazine design, and a teacher, gave you those. So if you can't find out where they're from, you could simply say images supplied by TAFE New South Wales, something like that. So it's clear that it's not yours. However, if you took the photos, you want to claim credit for that. So you want to put your copyright symbol clearly on there. So thinking about on your layout, where would that copyright statement be? That's what I mean by heading off things you might be leaving out or you've forgotten. We only need a typical page to give us an idea of what it might look like, and that home page layout is really important in terms of me being able to see a visual idea, of a sense of what are the tabs, what are the divisions that you've got, And the wireframe just helps me see, as you would for any client, helps you kind of see what are the main features on the website. We can look at it, and while it's still a pencil sketch, we can go, oh, you're not going to have a contents page? Or are you going to have an about page? Oh, that's going to be somewhere else. Oh, that information's on the front. Oh, okay. So there'll be questions that I might ask once I see that diagram about things you might have left out. Is it going to be, the home page is a long scrolling page with more information down the bottom. So to do this whole project, it is really important, as it was with the other business website, that you go and look at how it's done with, other design companies and other websites that inspire you. So it's quite valid to, take screenshots of the templates, for example, from Wix. If you see a template you think you really love, there's nothing to stop you from adapting that. However, just be aware it is really tedious if you try to just replace the images in an existing template. You may find you'll spend a lot of time trying to change fonts and so on, and it's actually very tedious, and it might have been easier just to build it from scratch. So you might decide to, you might realise, look, that's great for inspiration and I can see how they've done something, but to control the look and the feel of it, you want to start with a blank template. So, but do research. Have a look. If you see parallax scrolling, for example, how does that work? How have they done it? How do you pin? You can pin images and pin a bar to the screen and have things slide behind it, for example. That might be a feature you haven't explored yet. So by looking at other websites, you'll get some interesting ideas, and particularly. We are talking about a very visual website. You might find a very inspiring website that's using symbols or some kind of animated feature. Wix does allow some animation, which again, you might not have explored that yet. So have a look and get ideas before you go right into the design phase. This is the time to do that, is this week. Take screenshots. So we've got evidence of your research, and we've got evidence of, as you go into the project, where you're starting to make changes and adapt it. So wireframe, absolute minimum is the wireframe, which is that overall flow of the website from one page to another, and clearly shows what the menu was going to look like, what number of pages they are, what are they called, and then a more detailed drawing of the home page, and then one other typical page. That's all I need from you for next week. So hope to catch up with you then, and we'll start going further. But as soon as you start sending me, drawings and wireframes and so on, I'll try to get back to you quite quickly with feedback. And really, it's just to make sure you haven't missed anything, or perhaps you might want to rethink the order in which the menus appear. It could be something like that. And of course, there are more resources that I've put on Google Docs in the resources section that you can have a look at. There's a couple of slideshows on menu layout, and most of those are things I showed you for the last project, so you could refresh your memory of those by having a look through some of those resources. All right, we'll see you next week.